So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to kind of mix colors so that we can get, we're going to be using red, yellow, and blue, our three primaries, and we'll be getting our orange, our violet, and our green from this, and then mix even further to get the tertiary colors. Now, let's start off with red, and I'm just going to use this little color picker up here and go all the way up to the corner with red. This is probably a little bit too bright. You can see that right there, but we're just doing this for fun here. On the background, we're just going to create a new layer just so that we aren't kind of messing with any of that, and we can always come back, and I'll call this paint, because as you know, I am a fool about making sure all this is there. All right, so as we click down, you can see as I hold down the brush, or as you move the brush around with your tablet, we get a little bit of the color here. Not a big deal. Let's go over and use yellow. And then we're going to go over to blue. Now, something with blue that you want to be aware of. When mixing these colors, the blue that is closer to the green is going to work better for mixing to create a green, and the darker kind of blue that's closer to the violet is going to be better for mixing violets. So we're not really going to find a perfect mix here. Somewhere in this area is going to be good, but this is one of the situations with mixing colors in Photoshop. It's not going to be perfect. So we'll bring this kind of blue in here. All right. Now let's get into the actual mixing. So another keyboard command that I really want you all to be aware of is holding down the Option key. That's going to bring up the sampling brush, or the little eyedropper here. And it's just going to bring it up for as long as you've got the Option key selected. So we're going to mix red and yellow, and what we're going to do is bring in a little bit of red first. Usually mixing with the darker color is a good idea. And then we're going to select the yellow, and then kind of lightly brush over this. You can see as I do that, in this area there is a little bit of a color mixing. And if I hold down my keyboard, the Option key, and kind of move around, I can kind of find an orange that I think is kind of a nice mix between the two. Now I'm painting with that. You know, if I want to get a little bit more red, we can call that. So I think in this style of painting, having your one finger over top of the Option key and the other hand on the mouse, or using the tablet there, is going to be really helpful. And I can hit E real fast if I want to and get rid of that area right there. Go ahead and hitting B to go back to brush. All right, same thing over here. Let's bring in some blue. And a little bit of yellow. Kind of find that kind of green area. If I want to, I can bring a little bit more blue in there. And then just kind of move around till I find a green that works for me. That's pretty good. And you'll notice that with this mixing, it's not like the green that you would see right over here, this really bright green. With the mixing, that's not going to happen. But you do get a mix. And Photoshop, because it's actually mixing light and not pigment, it's doing a lot of math and algorithms to kind of figure out how these things would mix. So even though you're mixing light when you're painting with the brushes, it's trying to replicate what would happen if you were to mix pigments. Because remember, to get this yellow, I'd actually have to move, and with light, I'd have to actually mix red with green. All right. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we get this kind of weird color. So let's go to violet. Now you'll see when we go violet here, and we'll start maybe with the blue. Use the red here. Sometimes we're not going to necessarily get the most perfect violet, but we got a pretty good one here. So that works really good. And once again, this isn't the vibrant color that you'd imagine, but it's pretty good. And once again, I'm going to use my eraser to just kind of clean up this area here. You don't necessarily need to do that, but just doing it so it looks good here. Back to my brush with B. All right, and now we're going to mix our tertiary colors. And we can kind of speed through this. It's the same kind of idea. Finding those areas where you're going to get the two together. And the thing that's really making this work, maybe a little bit more of the purple, well together is because I've got that flow down lower. If you've got the flow up really high, the two colors, that little section where you're blending, isn't going to blend that well. And same thing here with the opacity. If you bring your opacity down, you're never going to get that full color. So kind of messing with these so that it feels good for you. This is kind of the area where it feels good for me. So once again, I'm going to bring in some red, bring in a little bit of the orange, and kind of move this around until I find the red-orange that I like. And same here, we'll start with the orange because it's a little bit darker. You can see because that flow is lighter, when I go and press once, it's not completely laid down. And that gives me the ability to kind of mix the two colors together. Maybe a little bit more orange. All right. Same thing, do the green here. Something else to be kind of aware of, and that's actually a pretty good green, yellow-green. With these, there are like a lot of other colors that you can, lots of other brushes that you can play with. And what you think is a blue-green might be different than somebody else's, but right there maybe. But you just kind of want to go through a selection that kind of goes in the middle of this. Same thing here. We'll start with the darker violet. And then the blue. Kind of get a blue-violet in there. So there you go. This is just a kind of interesting way to kind of mess with the color palettes. When we get into the next section here, I'll talk a little bit about using the mixer brush.